You know how you can have a screen lock for your Switch where you have to push a button 3 times in order to unlock it? Better security than the US Capitol, but this is clearly just so you don't accidentally start it up in your bag, instead of actually securing your console, because this function doesn't happen if your Switch is docked. But did you know that if you hit specifically the ZL or ZR triggers to unlock it, the sound it makes is different? Thanks to Nintendo for that fact, by the way. Anywho, before we get on to the topics at hand, I want to briefly cover something from my last video. I went over the topic of staling quite a bit in that episode, and oftentimes I'd say that the move keeps on going up a certain percent, indicating of course that it's not stale. This information was taken from the damage count on the side, here. Yet I saw several comments pointing out how the percent down here went from 10 to 12.6, a 2.6 increase rather than the supposedly static 2.5% increase that I had said. The reason why the percent would seem to go up more than what the damage counter would indicate is likely due to the existence of a 100th place in the damage calculation. Basically, the damage doesn't go to the 10th place like you see in the portraits here, but rather it goes as far back as even the 100th place or maybe even more. For example, in this scenario the freshness bonus has taken place, so assuming Luigi's down taunt normally does exactly 2.4%, when you apply the freshness bonus of 1.05 times, that percent becomes not 2.5, but 2.52%. The Smash Wiki states that all percents get rounded down to whatever their respective whole number is, and in Smash Ultimate it would get rounded to the respective 10th place. So basically we see each individual hit as 2.5%, and that's also what's being marked down on the damage indicator. However, the damage is really 2.52%. So here Mario's percent is really at 5.04, then it goes to 7.56, then 10.08, and finally it tops off to 12.6 since it can no longer be rounded downwards. Because we see all percents to the 10th decimal place now, this slight bit of information being missing doesn't really change much in the long run, but it's still really good to know for future context. I may make mistakes here or there, but I'm not gonna mess up basic math. You guys gotta give me some credit.
Sorry, Link. I can't give credit. Come back when you're a little...
And while we're talking about percentages and whatnot, there is no meme. Subscribe. Now.
richer.
Anyhow, 32-Bit Gaming asks if you can counter the Squeaky Golden Hammer. As you probably know, the hammer items are some of the most deadly items you can come across. And while some good game sense can render them virtually useless, the game itself can also do that. With the normal hammer, the head can fall off, leaving you with nothing to hit the opponent with, and leaving all opponents with empty hands a really powerful item to hit you with. With the Golden Hammer though, the item will go from dealing fatal blows to squeaky ones. No damage or anything is dealt. You're still able to hover over the air by spamming the jump button, but that won't do you much good when you're virtually defenseless. Each of these failures has a 12.5% chance to happen, by the way. Now, normally moves that don't do any damage like the Gust Jar's Wind or the Water from Flood cannot be countered. Now, it's not like the counter is totally useless, as LOONA doesn't get pushed by these wind boxes for the duration of the counter, but still the counter isn't being triggered. So what's weird is that the Golden Squeaky Hammer, as it's called, will do absolutely no damage, and yet it can still trigger the counter. The counter will do 9.6%, the base minimum amount of damage LOONA's counter can do, but still she's essentially countering nothing. I was curious about how the Golden Squeaky Hammer interacted with her shield, and funny enough, when it hits the shield, you don't really notice any hit sound or shield stun or anything, but you still see some hit effects appear. These normally appear when a damage dealing move hits your shield, or hits your hurt box when you're invincible, but they do not appear when a non-damage dealing move like Flood hits your shield. The Golden Squeaky Hammer will also not trigger explosive items. So it's like the Golden Squeaky Hammer sits between some weird limbo state between dealing damage and not. While we're talking about the hammers though, I'm sure you're curious about all of the trivia surrounding these two items, yeah? No? Now you want to know all about the hammer items. Now you want to know. Normally, if you drop the Golden Hammer, it's just kinda gone. However, you can actually re-grab it in the very short time it's still present in this state. Now, what's really interesting is that if you can get a golden squeaky hammer, drop that, then have someone immediately grab it again, it can become a real golden hammer. So the odds are recalculated upon being re-grabbed, I suppose. Next, as you know, when you pick up either hammer, a little song will play to accompany each one. In training mode, if you go into the frame by frame setting, the song will actually pause until you advance to the next frame. This is contrary to how the normal background music functions. The song that accompanies the superstar is the same as the hammers. Also, the power-up music track that plays with the golden hammer gets cut off after a few seconds. But if you slow the match down in any way, you'll be able to hear way more of the song than usual. It actually lasts quite a while, so give it a try if you're curious. Lastly, for a comparison of the differences between each hammer. They each have the same duration, but the golden hammer's swinging animation is faster than the normal hammer, and as such it can dish out more consecutive hits. The normal hammer will do 32.4% here, and the golden hammer will do 36%. The normal hammer has a knockback angle that's generally vertical, while the golden hammer's is generally horizontal. Finally, staling does not seem to apply to the hammers, nor does the freshness bonus, despite the fact that they're kinda like battering items, which do stale and have a freshness bonus. So they're a bit more unique in that respect. Speaking of staling though, we went over the staling mechanic a lot in my last video, so I won't stick to this too long, but in testing I got curious about how Final Smash is staled. The first Final Smash did 69.5%, but then the next one did 60.5%, then 56, and so on. So the Final Smash definitely staled, and when I turned staling off it did 66.2%, meaning it also underwent the freshness bonus. And since you're realistically only going to be using a Final Smash once, it's practically always fresh, and therefore buffed up. That's for cutscene Final Smashes though. I was curious about a Final Smash like PK Starstorm. Normally each star does about 9.6% of damage. With staling on, they start out doing about 10% each, which means they're fresh. However, hitting multiple stars in one use does not stale the next star. PK Starstorm as a whole seems to basically be considered one move. So of course when you use it a second time the damage drops to about 8.6% per star, and so on. Very interesting to note, but if I use PK Starstorm and miss every single star on a stationary target, wow, this Final Smash is awful. Because I missed every single star, the move never really hit. The way staling works, whiffing a move doesn't stale it, because that'd be really punishing for no real reason. And when I missed every star, the next use of the Final Smash saw damage numbers with the freshness bonus, meaning no stealing had happened because I missed earlier. So I think that's pretty interesting. Also, I just really quickly want to point out that with PK Starstorm, normally every star does the same damage. I never really noticed any variance when staling was off, nor when I was using it with the freshness bonus. But for some reason, after the move had become stale like 2 or 3 times, the stars started to deal a variety of damage within each burst. I don't really know the reason for this. I kinda doubt that certain stars stale more depending on which ones you hit earlier, considering the move as a whole stales more, but who knows. Alright, enough staling, let's move on to something new. White Husky showcases an interesting duck hunt tech, found by Alusanity, regarding their smash attacks. On this channel we've gone over how duck hunt smash attacks will deal twice as much damage if executed with training mode slowed down. Well, if you have a can out and time it right, you can do this. Normally you can't shoot the can while you're doing a smash attack. But if you hit the B button right before the smash attack starts hitting, that seems to let you circumvent that restriction. And note, you have to spam the B button for each hit to be stronger. I guess the game is just forced to add the reticle to the can, and in doing so it just adds another reticle to the smash attack or something like that. Also, I was able to semi-consistently do this with down smash and forward smash, but I wasn't able to do it with up smash. It might be a tighter frame window, but overall this seemed to be the most effective with just down smash. Next, Chris Thomas 05 showcases an interesting visual glitch involving the Miis. This is another thing we've gone over on the channel before, but Miis with headgear cosmetics on will not have the ears from the super leaf appear. The bunny hood ears work just fine, but not the super leaf. However, for some reason, if you get swallowed by Kirby, when you pop out, your ears will be back. I guess being consumed somehow destroys whatever effect prevented the ears from appearing. This also works if you just get spat out, and it also works with Wario, King Dedede, and Yoshi. I do not, however, urge you to try this in real life, as eating a person shouldn't reveal a hidden pair of ears atop their heads. Next, Beneboy asks an interesting question about the balloon fight stage and tether grabs. The Mario Bros stage and balloon fight both have one thing in common. The mechanic where going to the side blast zone will have you teleport to the other side of the stage. For the purposes of these tests, I'm gonna stick to balloon fight, but I did test everything on the Mario Bros stage and it was also true there. But no, unfortunately any attacks you do will just keep going in the direction towards the blast zone. It seems that teleporting to the other side of the stage is something restricted to players. As such, tethers also do not get teleported to the other side, nor do final smashes or anything like that. So while you're technically just one step away from the opponent here, your attacks will never hit them. Though attacks that sort of move with your character can hit them, even if that's just a tiny bit different. Speaking of balloon fight though, /121 gives me a really interesting fact regarding Chrome's up smash on this stage. Normally, Chrome's up smash has a little shockwave appear in the middle of it. Nothing too noticeable, just a nice touch and all that. But if you use the move on balloon fight, any variant of it, that shockwave will look a little weird. It's all colorful now, reflecting images that are definitely not behind it. It gets even wonkier when you look at it in the camera. I tried it on some other stages like Mario Bros. Or Duck Hunt, but the shockwave looked just fine on these stages. I did a little bit of research, and on the Smash Wiki, it says that this stage's camera removes parallax, which is meant to make this stage look 2D when it's in fact fully 3D. I'm not gonna act like I know more about this than what I do, but perhaps this effect is what causes these shockwaves to look so weird. That's just a little theory though, otherwise I have no idea. Next, Pikabots123 gives me a fun fact about Luma when Rosalina gets Star KO'd. When Rosalina gets Star KO'd with Luma still alive, it'll almost look like Luma is following Rosalina into the stratosphere, right? However, if we go into the camera, we can see that Luma isn't actually going into the background like Rosalina is. Instead, what's happening is forced perspective, with Luma just getting smaller. Like, really, really baby small. I thought this was a pretty neat way of handling this animation. And this also transitions into my last fact for today by Plebmaster, regarding screen KOs and the camera. But if you go into the game's camera when a screen KO has happened, the character on the screen will simply disappear with seemingly no way to be able to see them. And if we look at the top, Luma is just sort of lingering there, not growing or shrinking, until it eventually dies. And for whatever reason, the same frame that Rosalina and Luma officially get KO'd, the beetle will appear at the top of the screen for just that single frame before disappearing. Anyhow, that'll do it for today. I'd like to thank my patrons Felipe Morla, Avenkaru, Burbo, Linkdorf, Parade Dino, Raighne, Daneplay, Feurolant, Skully, Aman Shareef, Keckothedragon, Skim Milk, Skye, and Stan LOONA. I've finally been organizing my TF2 clips for those of you who are interested in that whole thing. I've still got to get started on learning how to use SFM for some basic graphics I'd want for the channel, like the icon or thumbnails and all that. So who knows how long until that's ready. But I'll keep having clips to use for the ends of these videos. And if you don't play TF2, well, okay, I half recommend that you do if you like FPSs, but the game's not in the best state right now, so that's totally up to you. I think it's an amazing game, but you know. Also, if you're an especially diligent subscriber, you may notice that this video was released only a week after the last one. Crazy, right? I'm, well, not sure if this is going to continue going forward, but I at least want to maintain that 10 to 11 day period between each upload that I had going on earlier last year. I never like having hard schedules since I think forcing work out there to meet a deadline doesn't do the project any favors, but if I didn't set any hard goals, I'd probably delay it way more than I should. We'll see what happens. Regardless, I always appreciate the continued support. Even though the series is over a year old now with almost 40 episodes in it, I've still got so much content to go over. So stay casual, and I'll see y'all later.